You're lucky we haven't fired you, she said. I looked at the folder in my lap, all 812 pages of payroll records. For the first time, I smiled back. Before we continue, please like this video and subscribe to the channel to help us create more videos like this. Done that? Great. Back to the story. Her name was Brenda, and her office smelled like lemon-scented bleach and corporate apathy. She was a thin, severe woman who wore her HR director title like a suit of armor. In the 5 years I'd worked here, I'd never seen her smile in a way that reached her eyes. The final written warning in my hand was still warm from the printer, the ink smelling sharp and final. I, Riley Anders, 31 years old and a payroll specialist for 5 years, was being officially reprimanded for insubordination and misuse of company time. My crime? Asking where my money was. "This is your last chance, Riley," she said, tapping a manicured nail on her desk blotter. The sound was a sharp, impatient click, click, click against the silence. "We value your diligence, but this obsession with the payroll glitch is bordering on harassment. It's disruptive. You're upsetting Mr. Kincaid. You're upsetting the department. You are to return to your desk, cease this independent investigation, and consider this matter closed. Do you understand?" I understood perfectly. I understood that her words were a threat wrapped in corporate jargon. Disruptive was the word they used when you caught them. Insubordination was what they called it when you wouldn't let go. I was a problem to be managed, not an employee to be helped. I nodded, my throat too tight to speak. I walked out of her office, the plastic-coated paper rattling in my shaking hand. I didn't go back to my cubicle. I went to the gray, buzzing break room, my reflection staring back at me from the microwave door. I looked tired. I looked cheap. This place, this company, had worn me down to a nub. The fluorescent lights hummed a miserable, flat note, highlighting the circles under my eyes and the cheapness of my blazer. This place hadn't just stolen my money, it had stolen my sleep, my weekends, my patience. I was single, lived in a tiny apartment, and was 2 months behind my car payment, all because I was too proud to ask my parents for help. I was surviving on instant ramen and anxiety, all while the people on the 30th floor were getting fatter. It started 19 months ago, March 12th. I remember the date because it was 2 days before payroll was finalized and it was my cat's birthday. The company, a mid-level logistics firm called Apex Freight, had just rolled out a new timekeeping system, Cramos Prime. It was sold to us in an all-hands meeting filled with stale donuts and buzzwords. Synergy, a guy from corporate had said. Streamlining our human capital. It was anything but. That first pay period, my overtime vanished. 8.2 hours of it. I'd stayed late every night that week to help with the data migration, a task I'd specifically been praised for. When I saw my pay stub, I figured it was a glitch. I'm a payroll specialist. I know glitches. Glitches are messy. They leave error codes. They are chaotic. I sent my first email. "Hi, Brenda. Looks like the new system missed my OT. Can you get with IT to push it through?" Her reply came 10 minutes later. "System glitch. We're working on it. Thanks for your patience." I was patient. I was patient when it happened the next pay period, and the next. I was patient when my polite emails turned into concerned emails, and my concerned emails turned into per my last emails. Each one was a little knot of anxiety in my stomach. Each non-committal reply from Brenda felt like a small, cold hand patting me on the head. After 3 months, I went to my direct manager, Mark. "Mark, this isn't a glitch. The system is just not paying me for approved overtime." He leaned back in his chair, a guy who perpetually looked like he'd just finished a 3-martini lunch. He was all expensive shirts, a too big watch, and dismissive confidence. He was the department's golden boy, the one who could do no wrong, and he smelled faintly of sandalwood and arrogance. "You're a payroll clerk," he said, not unkindly, but with the casual condescension of someone who has never worried about a utility bill. "You handle the data entry, let the systems guys handle the system. I'm sure it's just a lag. It's $1,200, Mark. It's not a lag, it's my rent. He held up a hand, a fleshy, manicured hand. We're looking into it. Just keep logging your hours. HR is aware. Don't be so emotional about it. It's just paperwork. That was the first time he underestimated me. He called me a clerk. I wasn't a clerk. I was a specialist. And he had no idea what that really meant.
Back in the present, I sat in that humming break room, the warning paper burning a hole in my lap. Insubordination. That's what they called it when I finally stopped emailing Brenda and Mark and filed a formal wage complaint with the company's internal ethics portal. I'd stared at the submit button for a full hour, my heart hammering. I knew this was the point of no return. I'd be either vindicated or fired. I'd laid it all out. The dates, the missing amounts, which now totaled $11,412.19, the 57 polite emails I had sent. The company's response, 2 weeks later, was this meeting with Brenda, this final warning. They weren't just ignoring me, they were threatening me. They were building a paper trail to fire me for their theft. I looked at the folder in my lap, the 812 pages. They thought it was just my printouts. They thought it was just me being obsessive. They were wrong. My hidden advantage wasn't just that I was obsessive. It was that I had the keys to the kingdom, and they'd forgotten they gave them to me. When Kronos Prime was installed, the implementation team from corporate gave me Level 7 admin access. The implementation team had been frazzled, behind schedule, and hopelessly confused by their own software. I'd been the only one in the department who actually read the 300-page technical manual. They'd been impressed when I pointed out a critical error in their data porting script. Just for 90 days, their team lead had said, gratitude rolling off him. So you can help troubleshoot data porting errors for the other employees. You seem to be the only one here who gets it. It was temporary. I was supposed to be downgraded to a level 3 user after. They forgot. For 19 months, I'd had God-level access to the entire payroll system. I wasn't just a user, I was an auditor. I could see every keystroke, every adjustment, every login from every terminal in the company. After Mark had dismissed me as a clerk, I went back to my desk, my face burning with humiliation. He had lit a fire under me. That night, I waited until the office was empty, until the only sounds were the hum of the servers and the tick-tick-tick of the security guard on his rounds. I didn't just look at my time card. I ran a back-end audit log on my own employee number. What I found made my stomach drop. It wasn't a glitch. It wasn't a system lag. Glitches are messy. This was clean. This was precise. At 5:03 p.m., on the day before payroll lockout, a manual adjustment was entered. My 8.2 hours of overtime were zeroed out. The adjustment was certified and batched. The entry was clinical emotionless. Action: manual OT adjust. User: M. Kincaid. Delta: -8.2. My blood ran cold, then hot. My breath hitched. M. Kincaid. Mark. He wasn't just dismissing my problem. He was my problem. He was logging in personally and deleting my overtime. I sat there until my screen went to sleep. My hands were cold. This wasn't a mistake. This was wage theft. This was personal. This was malicious. The casual way he dismissed me, he'd been lying to my face. This was a betrayal. It wasn't incompetence. It was malice. I ran the query again, but this time I didn't search for my name. I searched for the action. Manual OT zero out. The list that populated was long. 14 names. David from logistics, who had just had twins and was always showing pictures. Sarah from accounting, who was always stressed about her student loans. I'd overheard her crying in the bathroom about them once. Maria from custodial, who worked 2 jobs and was trying to save up for her son's college. Every single non-salaried employee in Mark's department. All of us. Getting our overtime skimmed week after week. It wasn't just me. He was robbing all of us. This wasn't just my fight anymore.
That's when I started exporting every log, every timestamp, every email I'd ever sent Brenda, and every non-committal gaslighting response she'd ever sent back. I saved every digital request and every single system error message. I cross-referenced the dates of his adjustments with his own login records. He often did it late at night, from home. I saved them to an encrypted external drive. The 812-page folder in my lap, that was just the decoy. The real evidence was in my bag. That final warning was the I have no options moment they designed for me. I was cornered. If I kept complaining, I'd be fired for insubordination. If I shut up, I'd be accepting the theft and would probably be fired in 6 months anyway for performance issues. They'd left me no good moves, so I had to make my own. That Friday night, I didn't go home. I went to a 24-hour Kinko's. I had $4,200 left on my one credit card, and I was about to spend a chunk of it. The place smelled like ozone and cheap coffee. The bored college student at the counter gave me a weird look as I fed page after page into the high-capacity copier. The total cost, $412.50, made me wince, but I tapped my card. It was an investment. By 3 a.m., I had 15 identical binders, 3 inches thick, tabbed and organized. Tab A, email correspondence with HR, 57 entries, 42 from B. Romer. Tab B, managerial adjustments, M. Kincaid, 412 entries, timestamped. Tab C, systemic victim list, the 14 names with calculated losses. Tab D, managerial bonus structures, the motive. Tab E, the final written warning, the retaliation. I looked at the stack of white binders. This wasn't a complaint anymore. This was a prosecution. On Monday, I took a sick day. I didn't call a lawyer from a bus stop. I used my hidden advantage again. As a payroll specialist, I had access to the company's vendor invoices. I knew exactly which law firm they kept on retainer for employment issues, a big shark-filled firm called Gable & Stone. Then I Googled that firm's biggest local competitor. I walked into the offices of Reyes, Diaz, and Chung at 9 a.m. I didn't have an appointment. A paralegal tried to stop me. You'll need to schedule a consultation. Do you know what our retainer is? I have documentation proving systemic wage theft affecting 15 employees at Apex Freight, including evidence of fraud and HR complicity. I'm meeting with a partner today. I'm not leaving until I do. I must have looked as insane and determined as I felt, because 20 minutes later, I was sitting across from Ms. Diaz. She was a shark in a $2,000 suit. She listened, her face impassive. She was skeptical. I get a dozen of these "my boss is a jerk" calls a week, Ms. Anders, she said, tapping her pen. This is a serious allegation, but he said, she said with HR is a non-starter. They will bury you in paperwork. This was my second underestimation scene. The first was from my boss. This was from my potential ally. I didn't say a word. I just hefted one of the 15 binders and placed it on her desk with a heavy, satisfying thud that echoed in the quiet mahogany-paneled office. I'm not she said, I told her. I'm the system said. Tab B, page 1, the time-stamped audit log of the first manual alteration. Tab D, page 14, his bonus statement. They didn't just underestimate me, they forgot I was the one watching the database. Ms. Diaz was silent for a full minute as she flipped through the tabs. Her skepticism evaporated. I watched her scan the pages, her pen tapping faster. She used his own login, she muttered, and HR was copied on the initial complaints. And this is the bonus structure? Good Lord! Her eyes, they actually lit up. My God, she whispered. She looked up at me, seeing me for the first time. You're not a payroll specialist, Miss Anders. You're a forensic accountant, and you've just handed me a class action lawsuit on a silver platter. What happens now? I asked. Now? She smiled, and it was the opposite of Brenda's smile. It was sharp. Now we don't file a lawsuit. That takes years. We send a demand letter directly to their CEO and their general counsel. We're going to bypass HR and legal entirely.
We are going to ask for the full $1.7 million in back wages, triple damages for willful misconduct, and our attorney's fees, and we're going to give them 48 hours to respond. What about my final warning? That, Diaz said, is our leverage. That's Exhibit E, retaliation. It proves they knew about the complaint, and instead of investigating, they threatened you. That's what makes this criminal. She told me to go back to work. Be a model employee. Clock in, clock out, don't say a word, just wait. The next 48 hours were the longest of my life. I went to my cubicle, I processed payroll. The click-clack of my keyboard was the only sound in the office. But in my head, a bomb was ticking. Every time my phone buzzed, I jumped. Every time someone walked past my desk, I was sure it was security, coming to escort me out. Mark walked by at 4 p.m., that same smug look on his face. He saw me at my desk, quiet and compliant, and clearly thought his final warning had worked. He even gave me a condescending little pat on the shoulder. "See, Riley, just focus on the work. It's all fine." He thought he'd put me back in my box. He had no idea Ms. Diaz's letter had just landed on the 30th floor. At 3:15 p.m. on Tuesday, the email hit my inbox. Not from Brenda, not from Mark. It was from the CEO's executive assistant. Subject: urgent meeting. Attendees: R. Anders, B. Romer, HR, M. Kincaid, manager, J. Stone, general counsel. Time: 3:30 p.m. Location: 30th floor, boardroom. Brenda and Mark came by my desk together. They looked confused, maybe a little annoyed. Brenda actually whispered to Mark, "This'll be quick," as if they were just going to the 30th floor to finalize my termination. "Got any idea what this is about, Riley?" Mark asked, trying to sound casual. "No idea," I said, grabbing my notepad, and my purse, which contained my external hard drive. The 30th floor boardroom was all glass and dark wood. It was built to intimidate. The general counsel, Mr. Stone, was one of the expensive suit lawyers I'd seen in the building, but never spoken to. He did not look happy. Mark and Brenda sat down, looking important. I sat opposite them. Stone didn't waste time. He slid a single piece of paper across the table. It was a copy of Miss Diaz's demand letter. Mark's face went white. Brenda just stared at it. "This is ridiculous," Mark sputtered. "She's been emotional. She's upset about the write-up. This is retaliation on her part. She's unstable." Stone just looked at him, his expression of utter contempt. "Is it, Mark? Because her attorney also sent this." He nodded to a tech in the corner, and a giant screen on the wall lit up. It was my spreadsheet. Column A, date. Column B, employee name. Column C, missing OT amount. Column D, user ID of manual adjustment. That last column just said M. Kincaid over and over. Mark's blood drained from his face. That's not real. She faked that. It's doctored. She's a clerk. She doesn't know what she's... "I'm a payroll specialist, Mark," I said, my voice cold and quiet. The only sound in the room was the hum of the projector. Everyone turned to me. "I have level 7 admin access. You've had it since the Cronus Prime install, but you never used it. I did. What you're looking at is a direct export of the server-side audit log. It's cryptographically hashed. It can't be faked. It just is." Stone looked at Mark. "The audit log, which our IT department just confirmed. You've been manually altering time cards, Mark. For 19 months. You've been stealing from your own department. I was reducing overhead. I was saving the company money. It was for my bonus metrics. I was making my numbers." "You are committing a felony wage theft," Stone said, his voice flat. He looked at Brenda. "And you received 42 emails from Ms. Anders alone. You were notified of a system error and never once escalated it to IT. You just told her to be patient, and then you wrote her up." "I was following protocol," Brenda said, her voice high and thin. "It was a disciplinary matter. She was being disruptive. It was a cover-up. You had a legal fiduciary duty to investigate a wage claim. Instead, you threatened the whistleblower. You have exposed this company to a criminal investigation." This was the moment. The public reckoning. Mark just deflated. The smugness, the confidence, it all leaked out of him, leaving a pale, terrified man.
He looked at me, his eyes wide with a new, horrifying understanding. He finally realized I wasn't the naive daughter. I wasn't the emotional clerk. I was the opponent he never saw coming. "Mr. Kincaid," Stone said, "your employment is terminated, effective immediately. Please leave your keycard and laptop. Security will escort you from the building." Mark stood up, his legs shaking. He dropped his expensive pen and it rolled across the table. He looked at me. You ruined me." "You did this," I said, my voice level. "I just kept the receipts." He was led out of the room, not even allowed to go back to his desk. Then Stone looked at Brenda. Her face was a mask of panic. "Ms. Romer, your negligence has exposed this company to catastrophic legal and financial risk. Your employment is also terminated, effective immediately." "You can't!" she shrieked. "John, we've worked together for 10 years. I'm HR. I have—" "You have nothing," Stone said. "You had a legal obligation to investigate a wage claim. You chose to threaten the employee who reported it. You're lucky Ms. Anders' attorney is offering a settlement and not a criminal referral." Brenda burst into tears as security led her out too. I was alone in the room with Stone. The adrenaline was so high, I could barely feel my hands. Stone sighed, rubbing his temples. "Ms. Anders, you've been very, very thorough. I assume your thoroughness is the reason you're still sitting here." "I'm here because my attorney is waiting in the lobby." The door opened and Ms. Diaz walked in, all smiles. She nodded at me first. "Riley, you good?" Then she turned to Stone. "Mr. Stone, good to see you. I trust you've reviewed our terms." "The $1.7 million is, steep," he said. "It's triple damages as allowed by state law," Diaz replied, sitting down, "and it's non-negotiable. My client has also requested a full severance package, a letter of recommendation signed by the CEO, and a company-wide memo apologizing for the system error." Stone looked at me. I just stared back. He knew I had them. The audit logs were ironclad. A public lawsuit would be a PR nightmare, not to mention the Department of Labor investigation it would trigger. "Fine," Stone said, pulling out a folder. "We'll have the settlement agreement drafted by morning, and we'll pay. We just want this binder to go away forever." The wire transfer hit my account 72 hours later. I stared at my phone, at numbers that represented more than money. My share, after the 14 others got their full back pay and damages, and after Ms. Diaz's fees, was $112,000. It wasn't never work again money. It was I never have to take this kind of crap again money. It was freedom. It represented 19 months of stress, 19 months of eating ramen, 19 months of being gaslit, dismissed, and threatened. It represented being believed. I called Ms. Diaz. "It's done. The money's here." "That's not what you won, Riley," she said quietly. "You won your self-respect. You won the precedent that they can't just take from you. You won the knowledge that you're not just a clerk. That's worth more than the money." She was right. The consequences for Mark and Brenda were swift and beautiful. Mark was unemployable. The word wage theft follows you in the logistics world. I heard through the grapevine he was selling off his expensive shirts on eBay. Brenda lost her SHRM certification. When the internal audit, which I helped oversee as part of my settlement, revealed she'd ignored dozens of other complaints, she was blacklisted. The most satisfying part, though, was the email that went out to the entire company from the CEO. "It has come to our attention that a significant payroll error originating from the Kronos Prime update resulted in underpayment of overtime for several employees. We deeply apologize. All affected employees have been made whole. I was packing up my desk. My severance package gave me 2 years' salary to just leave. I picked up the plastic-coated final warning from my desk, looked at it for a moment, and dropped it into the recycling bin. Just then, Sarah from accounting and David from logistics walked up. They were holding a card. "We all wanted to, David said, shuffling his feet. Sarah hugged me. "You're a hero, Riley. I was about to lose my car. You saved me." I opened the card. Inside were 14 handwritten notes. "I can finally pay my son's medical bill. Thank you for fighting for us. You're a total badass." I sat in my car in the parking lot for the last time. I'd spent 5 years in that building, and the last 19 months had been a living hell. I thought about the stress, the sleepless nights, the humiliation of that final warning. Was it worth it? I looked at my bank account, at the card full of thank you notes, at the text from Miss Diaz. Yeah, it was worth it. 3 months later, I walked into a new office. It was bigger. It had a window. A shiny plaque was being mounted on the door. Riley Anders, Senior Compliance Auditor. It turned out that when a company has to pay a $1.7 million settlement, their competitors take notice. They don't just notice the mistake, they notice the person who found it. The competitor, a larger, smarter logistics firm, hadn't just hired me, they'd recruited me. "So, you're the one who blew the whistle at Apex. Your insubordination and misuse of company time is exactly what we call a job description here. We don't punish people for finding problems, Ms. Anders. We bonus them. Find the problems before they cost us $1.7 million. My new job wasn't processing payroll, it was auditing it. It was a 40% raise, a promotion, and the one thing I'd really wanted: respect. These days, I wake up in my new apartment, the one I paid for with my settlement money, and I make coffee. No one calls me a clerk. No one dismisses my concerns. When I send an email about a system error, VPs listen. I ran into Mark at a Starbucks last month. He looked smaller. His expensive shirt was wrinkled. He was working as a cashier. He saw me and his face went through a whole range of emotions: shock, anger, and finally, just tired defeat. He started to say something, probably to ask me not to say anything to his new boss. I just nodded politely, kept walking, didn't look back. That's when I knew I'd really won. Not because I'd destroyed him, he'd done a pretty good job of that himself. I'd won because I no longer needed anything from him. Not an apology, not an explanation, not even his recognition. They thought I was just a low-level employee, a cog in the machine. They forgot that the person who enters the data is the only one who knows exactly where all the bodies are buried. They forgot to pay me for 19 months, so I made them remember. And in the end, they paid me 2 years' salary to walk away, and their biggest competitor paid me even more to come on board. I guess you could say I'm a very good accountant. If you enjoyed this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments below.